The rain in the bottom layer didn't fall. It dissolved. It chewed at the rusted ribs of shipping containers and melted the neon of noodle stalls into a shimmering, electric broth that ran through the gutters. I was crouched over a puddle of oil, trying to trap the city's reflection inside my lens, when a shadow broke the frame. Cairo Han. He looked like every other ghost that haunted the docks, shoulders hunched, a tattered black windbreaker cinched tight, grease beneath his fingernails that never quite washed away. A courier. A man who moved things that shouldn't be moved for people who didn't exist. I thought he was running from debt. I thought we were the same. "Nix," he said, barely louder than the hum of the mag rails above us. "Watch the perimeter." We were standing in front of a Tier 7 encryption node, a $1 million lock guarding a corporate data vault. It didn't belong in a graveyard of rust and rain. Cairo didn't use a hammer. He slid a slim instrument from his sleeve, something closer to a surgical probe than a tool, and his fingers moved with a bored, rhythmic grace. The red light bled into green in 90 seconds. "How do you know how to do that?" I whispered. "Muscle memory," he said, eyes already reading the data stream. "And a very expensive education I tried to forget." The district cameras went dark. For one perfect, illegal moment, we were the only two people in the city who didn't exist on a screen. That's when I understood. Cairo Han wasn't overqualified for poverty. He was a predator wearing a sheepskin. And predators don't hunt to survive. They hunt to inherit. The piece lasted 10 minutes. Shatterhand enforcers poured into the alley, men who broke bones for sport, pulse rifles humming with quiet violence. I lifted my camera on instinct, a useless shield. Cairo didn't raise his hands. The tattoo along his collarbone pulsed, a soft, piercing frequency, too high to hear, too sharp to ignore. The lead enforcer froze. His weapon clattered to the concrete. Then the impossible happened. They dropped to their knees, foreheads pressed into filthy rainwater like they were praying to the pavement. Cairo didn't look relieved. He looked disgusted. "Get up," he said. But his voice had changed. The dock worker's rasp was gone. This was the voice of a man who had never been denied anything in his life. "We didn't know, young master," the leader stammered. "The patriarch said you were to be retrieved, not harmed." The word retrieved didn't sound like rescue. It sounded like inventory. The sky turned white. A Han Empire heavy lift transport descended, its floodlights bleaching midnight into noon. The air itself became a physical weight. I watched my vintage Leica vibrate in my hands. Then the lens shattered into glittering dust. My way of seeing the world died in my palms. An envoy in a charcoal suit stepped out of the ship and held a digital credit chip toward me. "For your silence, Miss Adesina. More than you will earn in 3 lifetimes." Cairo snatched it and snapped it in half. "She isn't for sale." But he didn't look at me when he said it. He looked at the ship, at the sky, at the power he had tried to outrun. 3 days later, I was standing in a tower so high the clouds felt like carpet beneath my feet. The docks were a memory below me, reduced to glowing coordinates on a holographic map. Cairo was unrecognizable. The windbreaker was gone. In its place, a bespoke charcoal overcoat that probably cost more than my entire block. His hair was slicked back, exposing the cold, sharp geometry of his face. A heavy signet ring rested on his hand, less like jewelry, more like a weapon that happened to shine. He zoomed the map in. "See this?" he said, pointing to a blinking dot. "That's your studio." I nodded. "Do you know why your landlord never raised your rent?" he asked. "Because my father's subsidiary bought the building the day we met." My stomach dropped. Every meal we shared, every lucky break you had, every night you slept safely. He looked at me then. It was an invoice I was paying without knowing it existed. You owned me, I whispered. Not you, he corrected. Everything. He turned back to the city. That's the inheritance. You don't choose if you're part of the empire. You only choose whether you're the hammer or the nail. Dinner with the patriarch felt like sitting inside a blade. Seok-hwan Han sat at the head of a table that seemed to stretch for miles, silver hair immaculate, voice soft enough to be kind. He placed a thin digital ledger on the glass. The baker who gave us free bread, the mechanic who fixed our bikes, the neighbor who let us sleep on her roof when the heat died. Every name, every face. All employees, he said pleasantly. Deep cover security. Asset protection. Cairo stood so fast his chair scraped the floor. You turned my life into a test. The patriarch smiled. No, I turned it into a resume. Then he looked at me. Love, he said, lifting his glass, is just an audit we haven't finished yet. That was the night Cairo stopped being a man. That was the night he became an heir. The board proposed the cleaning protocol the next morning. Burn the shipping yards, replace the bottom layer with an automated port, higher efficiency, fewer variables. Cairo didn't argue. He didn't beg. He walked into the boardroom carrying my work, years of photographs, hidden records, proof of dumping sites and quiet graves. He didn't leak them. He didn't seek justice. He used them like a knife. By the time he was done, every director in that room was bleeding leverage. The system didn't fall. It changed owners. At sunrise, I stood on the balcony of Han headquarters. The bottom layer was still there, but now it was wrapped in high-altitude fencing, watched by drones, stamped with the Han crest. No longer a slum, a high-security asset. Cairo stood beside me, the city reflected in the polished surface of his signet ring. He handed me a new device, a sleek tablet linked to every satellite in the sky. I raised it, not to expose him, not to save anyone, but to archive what power looks like when it finally stops pretending. I took his picture. He didn't smile. He didn't look like a savior. He looked like the most efficient monster the city had ever built. The courier was dead. The young master had come home.